Hello, friends, it's Phil, and today I've been working on an old 48 Pro, a Hayter 48 Pro, a domestic version of the 48 Pro, let's say. Actually, no, if I'm correct in my thinking, sorry, backpedal, this is a domestic model of the 48, the Hayter 48, and it's about 20 years old, and I'm giving it a service. Now, the good thing about this machine is the underdeck is fully intact. Excellent. The other thing that's good about it is the crankshaft has got no wobble on it, which is really good. The other thing that it's got going for it is it's got a nice set of wheels. They could do with replacing, but they're fine. Not too much wear. The other good thing about it is it's still got a nice green carcass or deck, let's say, which is nice. And the other good thing about it is it doesn't look like it's got any particular leaks or loose linkages. So that's all that's good about it. And the good thing about it is having given it a spring start, a spring service, it starts pretty nicely. And keep in mind that old haters do need a little bit of coaxing when you start them. They don't start the first time unless you kind of really know kind of how to get that compression right before you pull the handle, let's say. And when I talk about the compression, by the way, is that when you pull the handle towards you, there'll be a point when you feel it tensioning up, and that's the compression happening in the cylinder head. And that's really important because if you don't have much compression in the cylinder head, you won't get the combustion you need to get the mower running. And that's one big reason probably why old machines eventually die, is because wear and tear, because they don't get enough oil changes. That wear and tear leads to the cylinder head and the piston rings getting worn out, and eventually the compression in the cylinder head starts to fail. Even though it's sparking really well, there's just not enough compression to get the explosion to push down on the piston. Get that. The explosion pushes down on the piston head that creates the second cycle, and then it carries on going, right? But if it doesn't have enough compression in the cylinder head, it can't push the cylinder down. It doesn't create the second cycle. So, annual services on your lawnmower is an absolute must. And if you're running commercial machines, you can do it a lot more often than you probably do. So, the machine's been given a service, new spark, new oil, checked over everything, gave it a wash, gave the underdeck a wash, given all the bits and bobs and bolts and whatever, just a gentle loosen up, gentle spray with a bit of WD-40 and a gentle tighten back to make sure it all feels nice and firm. And there was one discovery, my friends. There was one discovery which I knew about because I'd actually used it to cut my lawn just to give it a run, because running an old 48 kind of took me back a bit. Took me back to the early days of all gardening, running the old machines. The new machines are much better, by the way. The new 48 Pros are much better. And interestingly enough, if you haven't seen my review on YouTube yet, pop over onto the All Gardening channel on YouTube, and there's a review of the new Hayter 48 Pro, and there's also a 12-month user review, which hopefully is of use to some of you that may be interested in the 48 Pro. But there was one thing that was really niggling me. And the thing about it is the attention to detail in lawn care kind of really starts with the lawn mower. The lawn mower's precision, let's say, in cutting and using the mower to cut the lawn well. And there was one thing that was puzzling me about this machine. It felt a bit wobbly in the handlebars, let's say. It felt a bit wobbly. And I thought to myself, oh, it's just a bit wobbly because it's an older 48. It's an old Hayter 48. It's just a bit wobbly. It's just a bit worn out. The bits and pieces are just getting a bit wobbly. But actually, on inspection, I found that there was this one bolt. So on the 48 Pros, the old 48 Pros, and I think the construction of the new 48 Pros is much more robust for doing this that I'm going to explain. It's adjusting the handle height. You can adjust the handle height down by where the handle connects to the mower. But the way they built it back in the day was they built it through this kind of like two plates with locking grooves that was all held together by a bolt. Now, the thing about it is, because of where this bolt is connected to the machine and where the bolt's connected to the handle, there's a little gap, a mere, just enough of a gap that moisture and rain can get down the gap. And in doing so, there's a bolt inside this handle adjustment mechanism, right, that gets rusty. So let's say it hasn't got a locking washer or locking nut on it, because the way the mechanism works is that let's say the outer cases clamps onto the inner casing that clamps onto the bolt. And as you tighten up the outer bolt, it it pulls the two plates together and it locks the handle in position, right? But inside of the two plates, there is a bolt that adjusts the tension of the inner plate of the two plates. It holds it in place. And over time, a bit of wear and tear, a bit of moisture, a little bit of rust, this little bolt had decided to lock itself into position around about 2 mil off of the deck casing. Are you still with me? I hope you are. And this 2 mil was affecting the handle firmness. And that handle firmness, if you've cut lawns as many times as me, and I worked out the other day actually that I haven't done a mere 10,000 hours of, let's say, they say to be an expert in anything, you have to do something for 10,000 hours. I've worked out that I've worked on lawns for 31,000 hours, 31,700 and something hours. That's a lot of hours. But the thing I am incredibly sensitive towards is the precision, the accuracy, the control of the lawnmower through my arms, and actually, interestingly, through my ears, which I'll explain a bit about that. But anyway, look, I took the assembly apart of these two plates. I adjusted the inner bolt out because rather than trying to tighten it in and tighten it past the rust, which wasn't going to be easy, I squirted a bit of WD-40 and loosened it out where there wasn't the rust. Ta-da! Then I got my wire brush onto the bolt, agitated the rust a little bit, and tightened up the inner plate tighten up the bolt against the inner plate. Inner plate tight, brilliant. Outer plate on, outer bolt on, handle adjustment, spotter Rooney diddly doddly. Excellent. Job done. So that, my friends, has been the highlight of my morning, is getting the precision of the 20-year-old Hayter 48 just the way I'd like it to be. Still a bit loose around the height adjustment thing. I'm not quite sure why that is. There's something inside of the settings that definitely weakens off over time. But look, I did also, just in that little chat, mention the 31,700 and something hours on a lawnmower. And here's the other thing. If you put on a pair of ear defenders, like I do when I'm cutting lawn to try and look after my lovely ears, is you can hear the frequency, the frequency of the engine, right? And if you have really sharp lawnmower blades, the frequency of the engine is higher by a tiddly, 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 tiddly fraction. Weird as it may sound, that fraction indicates that the blades are sharp, and it's a beautiful, beautiful sound, because you only ever notice the change in the frequency when you sharpen up the blades, because after a few cuts the blades dull off a little bit, and therefore the strike on the grass, or maybe the way the blade runs through the air, is slightly different. Therefore the frequency of the engine is slightly different. And I know that sounds really weird, and if you've listened to this right to the end, you'll think, God, you're an absolute nutter. But look, the one thing I've learned over the years is if you keep the littlest things in good order, you get the best results from your gear for as long as the gear can possibly survive. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Ta-da. Bye.